Okay, so hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the second episode of Cricket Spectacle. Once again, I have with me Nikhil and Dan. Last week was a bit crazy. I have to admit that I didn't see it coming. A test match ending in less than 2 days, and a 5-0 prediction going wrong. Right, Nikhil? Dan?
Yeah, well, the 5-0
Oh,
prediction, I could see that going wrong. Come on. Like, we could see that
well,
going wrong,
a
right?
5-0 prediction is still on the cards. It's just like it could be the wrong bloody team.
Yeah. If you
Yeah,
look at it, then, yeah, we can find a loophole to make that happen, right?
yeah, yeah. But yeah, gentlemen, it's been an interesting week in the world of cricket. Once again, Joe Root's crying about a pitch.
Who would have
Um,
thought that? Like, who would have
who would have
expected that,
thought
right? Like,
that?
yeah.
Who would have thought
You lose a
that?
test match and then you complain about a pitch which you couldn't play
Yeah.
on. That's not expected from anyone. That was just shocking, right?
Absolutely.
Well,
Especially from England.
yeah. I mean, especially from England, of all the teams, upholding the spirit of the game, the letter of the law. People like Joe Root and Ben Stokes, pillars of the community complaining about the game. No, never would have saw that coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A spinning pitch and England batsman couldn't play on it. That's the most shocking thing that's going to happen this year. So
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
I
nothing
think it
new
was the
about-
shortest test match, right? It was the shortest test match since
Yeah,
World War
yeah.
II or something.
So,
So-
see, guys, see, we
Okay.
witnessed, the action. It turned out to be the shortest completed test match since 1935. Also on social media and everywhere, there were different opinions from experts and even fans. Some blamed the pitch, some applauded India, and some questioned England's inability to adapt to the spinning tracks. So I'm going to start with you, Nikhil, and my question is that what was the first thought you had in your mind after witnessing the game end that quickly?
First was that England picked the wrong team. Like, come on, like you
Oh, absolutely. They did. It's spot on there.
and you pick what, four seamers and one spinner. Like that's the main mistake, isn't it? And let's assume that they knew that Joe Root is going to be the second spinner. And I don't have any issues with Joe Root being their second spinner because
Oh, I do.
he would probably do like around 70% of whatever anyone else or any other spinner of theirs could probably do on the squad right now, right?
Right.
So let's assume, and I'll give them the benefit of the doubt for that maybe. But having said that, you are playing in India. You have played the previous test match on a spinning track. You know what's going to come up, right? So for you to not adapt even after knowing everything, like Rohit Sharma 3 days before the test match, he came out and said, this is our strength and we'll play to this.
Yes.
He said it openly. It wasn't like England were caught off guard. The only thing which could have impacted their thinking is that the pink ball is supposed to seem a bit more, right? But it's not the same pink ball as England have previously played, right? It's an SG ball. It's not a Kookaburra.
Yes.
So there's that element as well. And in today's time, in 2021, if you can't do your research and you can't prepare for a game beforehand and just get caught off guard, you have no excuses after that. Well, and again, there's this whole element of India also couldn't bat well on the pitch. See, the thing is, there was a collapse after India were like 97 for 2 at the start. So assuming that collapse didn't happen and India batted for another 40 overs maybe, and they scored another 120 and reached 250 or something, then nobody's going to say the same thing, right? Like,
Absolutely.
that's the whole narrative changes. It could have been the Chennai test all over again when India batted well and England struggled.
Yes.
So in that case, nobody is talking about is the pitch that bad and stuff like that. The whole narrative is different in that case. India collapsed. Joe Root got a fifer, and he picked all the tail enders. Okay, let's not go saying that Joe Root ran through the Indian batting lineup. He ran through the batting lineup because he was bowling on a tough spinning wicket against tail enders. Like if you can't pick tail enders quickly on that pitch, then the issue is with you. If you're doing it, then you're doing the least expected of you. So all the wickets going to Joe Root might seem like, okay, anyone could pick a wicket there. And it might be the case, right? It was a tough wicket. Nobody's denying that. Let's not say that it was not a tough pitch to bat on. But was it really impossible to bat on? When the two captains come out, Rohit Sharma, who got like what, 70, 80, how many runs, 80, 90 runs or something in the test match alone.
Yeah.
When these people come out and say, Joe Root said the same thing, it was a 250 pitch. Kohli said the same thing, that it was a good batting pitch. Now, there's this whole element of they have to be politically correct about it. But still, if one person or two person or the top three batsmen in the two teams are saying that, then there has to be some value to it, right?
Absolutely,
so
absolutely.
I don't blame the pitch entirely. It was a difficult pitch. Let's accept that. But apart from that, it was just a matter of India being better than England on the same pitch, because at the end of the day, they played on the same pitch, and England had the advantage of batting first. They won the toss.
Yes.
So you can put everything in their column, and then you look at the result and you go, who was the better team? And the better team won. So if you
there's no doubt that the better team won. Yeah.
If you want to complain after that, then I mean, the fact that it ended in 2 days, isn't it England's responsibility to make sure the game doesn't end in 2 days? Like, wouldn't the Chennai test also be similar? Wouldn't the Chennai test also be similar in that case? Like, if India had not batted for so long, it could have ended quickly as well. So
okay, I'm going to put it to you like this, gentlemen.
Yes.
India tour England later this year. Okay.
Yeah.
So in this hypothetical, the same Indian side, they go to Lords. England produce a steaming green top, and India get rolled in 2 days. Are we going to be having the same argument saying, should India have done better? Is it the pitch? So, I mean, there's talk now of England complaining to the ICC. And I mean, this definitely does raise eyebrows. Like, this game finishing in 2 days should not have happened. In that stadium, it just should not happen. So, in a hypothetical, if England roll India in 2 days in England on a seeming green top, I mean, India really has no right to complain then, right?
They shouldn't, right? Like any team shouldn't.
I mean,
any international team shouldn't. That's the thing.
but the problem is when the pitch is clearly doctored, like it would be in England and like it has been here. I mean, it's like pop me. Yeah. And that's the problem. I mean, the audience is robbed of a contest, and I mean. Let's just come out and call it. Now, I mean, if Joe Root gets 5-4, I mean, when was the last time Joe Root got 5-4? I mean, come on, the pitch was doctored. Let's just say it. Yes, the better team won. Yeah, the better team won. There's no problem with that. But the pitch was clearly doctored, and England became the second team to lose a day-night test match batting first.
Yeah. And I think adding to what Dan said, see, if it is the case about pitch being doctored, then I don't know, what home advantage means apart from this. Because see, at the end of the day, I think it's just about using your home advantage to your, to your proper advantage. And at the very same time, you're talking about those green tracks, what happens when India go to England or maybe New Zealand. The same thing happened in New Zealand in 2020. Both the tests that India played, I think they were rolled over, I think inside the 3 or 4 days of both the test matches. And at the very same time, I think on these green tracks also, India have managed to sneak out some wins, be it Johannesburg in 2018, or be it even, Cambridge in 2018. India have really managed to do well. And there have been no complaints from the management or, any of the top players like Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma, or maybe Ajinkya Rahane. I think at the end of the day, it is possibly just about, adapting yourself to the conditions. And the way, India have really groomed their fast bowlers like Umesh Yadav, Ishant Sharma to perform well in those overseas conditions really, speaks a lot about India's bench strength here and India's ability to adapt. Something I feel that England are really lacking. And I think this is where, I'm just going to stay with you, Dan, for this. So Dan, R. Ashwin, he recently got into a little argument with an England journalist about,
Yeah.
what's a good cricket pitch.
Yeah, no, I saw that, and it's an interesting comment that you bring up.
Yes. So see,
Um,
India lost early. India lost overseas early in that in those two matches against New Zealand last year, and
Yeah.
nobody said anything about the pitch. It was basically, it came down to the application part of India. That India lacked application. Indian batsmen lacked application. Now
Which
India
was
won
true as
inside
well.
2 days.
Which was true. Yeah,
Yes.
which
Now,
was true as well. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Now India won inside 2 days at Motera, and it's all about the pitch. So Dan, who do you agree with? Or let's say,
well, here's
what's your take on this?
here's the thing, and like when this happens, right? When it's a seaming pitch, you notice no one says
Yeah.
anything. But like Nathan Lyon also brought up a good point as well. He said whenever the pitch spins and someone gets rolled, suddenly people throw that out there. It has to be the pitch. There's a problem with the pitch. And I mean, he brings up a good point, Lino. Same with Ashwin. It's like, sure, you can call out a good pitch from a bad pitch, but when a pitch is spinning and a collapse like this happens,
Yes.
it's generally controversial. But when the pitch is seaming, no one's got an issue with it. Case in point, India got rolled for 36 on a good batting wicket in Adelaide. I mean, that was a road.
Right.
No one had an issue with that pitch. Not one. I mean, it's Adelaide. The only problem with Australian pitches is they don't do enough. They either bounce or spin or seam. So this pitch here, I mean, yes, England lost. I mean, it's in the past. I mean, I agree with Ashwin on this one. I mean, who are you to say whether or not it's a good surface from a bad surface? I mean, England have been doctoring pitches since early 2005. I mean, ever since they had Graham Swan in their side, you look at the mud tracks that they would produce for him.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And then those same tracks, 4 years later, when he retired, suddenly were green seamers when they had Anderson and Broad in their prime. So I think for England to complain about the state of the pitch, it's like, well, you can't really claim the moral high ground. Whereas if I was India, I would come out in front foot and say, yes, it probably wasn't the best pitch, but, welcome to India. It's always spun since 2001. And I mean, you talk about preparation. Matthew Hayden's a great example of preparation of a batsman performing in India. Like if you look at his 2001 tour, he actually spent his time out here at Albion on spinning wickets, taking, bowling from spinners. And he had like one of the greatest Indian tours ever for a tourist. I mean, that tour actually made him. So, I mean, it comes down to Nikhil's point, again, about preparation. England clearly didn't do it. England stuffed up with their team selection, picking 4 seamers, expecting an SG cricket ball to react under lights in a new pitch, a new stadium, like it would everywhere else. And they paid the penalty for it. And, they're not playing Don Best. Don Best got Pfeiffer in the first game. They let Moeen Ali go home, for the bubble. But and I mean, when your 2 frontline spinners are Jack Leach and Joe Root, I'd be embarrassed as a batsman to get out to either of them. I mean, either one of them. I mean, I got out to Joe Root today, honey. I mean, that's a real bad day at the office. Jack Leach, I mean,
5 of us,
dude.
I mean, Jack got out to Joe Root.
I mean, Leach, of all people, he will just be remembered as the village idiot, who was lucky enough to survive one Ashes Test match. I mean, I'm sorry. I have I don't think he's, he cuts it as a Test cricketer. So I think England really don't have a top quality spinner, for one in this side. And chopping and changing and putting all your eggs in one basket for white ball cricket isn't going to work.
Right.
So I mean, their number 3 is clearly an issue. Their opening partnership, there's issues there. If Root doesn't perform, if Stokes doesn't perform, you're pretty much through that side pretty quickly. So to lose in the manner that they did, they just simply can't blame the pitch. And I mean, a lot of the deliveries were all straight balls that got them out. They were playing for spin that wasn't there. I mean, you're doing an aggressive sweep shot on a turning wicket. I mean, whatever happened to using your feet and coming down the pitch?
Which is something Rohit Sharma did pretty well, actually, especially in the second innings as well, where, I mean, 47 runs or 49 runs is something you should be chasing regardless of the pitch. But the fact that he came out and, just took charge of the innings, just like settle the nerves for anyone who was struggling as well. And that's how you play spinning pitches, right? That's the basics of it. There's no two ways around it. If you let the ball spin, the ball is going to spin. If you get to the pitch of the ball, then you don't let the ball spin. Then I think Shubman Gill, or I don't know who it was, but someone did that as well. He just came down the track and the ball spun. He just used his legs, didn't even offer a shot. And you can't give that out because you're 3 meters ahead.
Exactly. If you're 3 meters down the wicket and you're not playing a shot, you're not out LBW.
Exactly. So if you don't do those basics, then you are going to struggle, right? And it was one of those pitches where the more you waited, the higher the chances of you getting out, which is something which happened as well. I think 21 out of the 30 wickets were to the straighter ball rather than the spinning ball. And if you just keep defending, at one point you're just going to get done by a good ball, which is what happened to most of the
England have struggled against spin for 30 years. I mean,
it's not a new thing.
Any spinner from India, Ashwin's got them, Kumble's got them at one time. I mean, you name it. Everyone's sort of had their measure. Murali, and I mean, because they just don't play spin well. They're not brought up to use their feet against spin.
Okay. Some good points, guys. So, Nikhil, just staying with you. So, when you talked basically about, England getting their combination wrong, I think it also, boils down to the fact of the rotation policy they have had now. So we have seen, people like Joss Butler going back home after the first test. Then Sam Curran couldn't make it, for the remaining 2 tests due to some issues. I think this is where Ian Bell has also criticized that England should have, fielded their strong squad, which would have had, the likes of Joss Butler and maybe someone like James Anderson featuring in all the tests. Because, let me remind you that James Anderson did not feature in the second test. So my personal point of view here is that the rotation policy, and I agree with Dale Steyn here, that the rotation policy that the England management has adopted is pretty good. Because keeping in mind the fact that you are going to play India in the Ashes this year, it is very important that you need to have, all your 3 formats players fresh and ready to go. But
Australia in the Ashes,
yeah, absolutely. But Ian Bell, someone who, was an established batsman who did really, really well for England, across tests and ODIs. I think he also has a valid point that you against India, in a battle that he would rate bigger than the Ashes. It is very important that you field your most important players. So what's your take on this? Is it right that, they rested their players keeping in mind, the future tours or the future series, or it was something that, England made a mistake against India and now they are trailing 1-2?
Well, I mean, see, honestly, it's like a team or organization decision, isn't it? Like at the end of the day, it's not one person who's making that decision. And I think a part of it, and I have no absolute proof for this, but I know for a fact that England have actually reduced the payment to the players this year because of COVID, and there was a financial hit on the players. And in return, what the England board said to the players was that you can play IPL, we won't stop you. You can focus on that, make your money over there, and make up for it. So once you say that, so you know where your priorities lie, right? Like it's a matter of helping the players make up for it. So then the team is secondary after that, isn't it? So when your main players are being given that message that we are not paying you X money, but the difference of it, just make it up in the IPL and we won't be stopping you from doing it. You can rest, you can do whatever you want before the IPL and we'll take care of the rest. So once you do that, then it's a matter of, do you even want to play? if you are not being forced by the team itself. Like the team has taken a decision. It's sending out a strong message saying that, okay, cool, even if you lose this, it's fine. You can just come back. And it's essentially doing that, right? It's not that they are not serious about winning. It's just that they're not serious about winning this particular series.
Yes.
And of course, the Ashes is the top priority. The Test World Cup probably might not, World Championship might not even be in their objectives, maybe. So for them, or for what I discussed with one of my friends as well, is that let's say they put out their best team, they would still lose. That's the
I think it'll be closer. I think you got a valid point there, but like, not saying people don't want to play Test cricket anymore over T20 cricket. That's a bit. Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs if it's true. But I think their best team would be more competitive, especially in the conditions. And the problem is England don't have a top three, and Joe Root won't bat at three, and that's the problem. And then they've got Stokes batting at 4, which isn't his best spot. So I think it's just poor selection. And I think trying to copy that policy Australia had in the last Ashes series clearly hasn't worked. I mean, it works when you're winning, but when you're losing, I mean, it worked for India and Australia. And I mean, it worked for Australia in the Ashes and when they're in England. That rotation policy works really well when you're winning. When you're losing, it's suddenly a question. But I mean, England just simply don't have that squad depth or that bowling depth. I mean, outside of Anderson, Broad, Archer, Wood, I mean, you don't really have that much. You have a couple of medium pacers and you don't have a top quality spinner. And I mean, yes, it's worked for them in South Africa, but India's a different, different beast. I mean, if that Indian tour is so important to you, wouldn't you want to pick your best side?
Yeah, that's the whole priority kind of thing, right? Like if it's really important, just send your best men there and see if you can actually get a result. And which they did. They got the first test as well. It's not like it was. They're not getting steamrolled through across the series. It's just like okay, they didn't put out their best side in the second test. They didn't put it out in the third as well.
Yeah.
They sent Moeen Ali back.
That's completely right.
It's just you can blame them and you should blame them, but it's like if you have decided early on that this is what we are going to do, then might as well stick to it, I guess. I mean, who knows, they might actually go on and win the next series and everyone's be like, okay, that
might win the next test, and it could be
exactly that as well. So
So
you can have a different narrative in that case and go, okay, cool, they lost 2 tests, but then in the long term that strategy has worked, which right now doesn't seem pretty smart, but maybe 2 weeks later we might have a different chat.
Then it begs the question, is Joe Root actually leading the side? If he's not getting the players he wants for the tests, I mean, would you say he's a strong leader? I mean, no one would do that to Virat. No one would say to Virat.
No one would dare to do it to Virat.
No one would ever do that to Virat. So, I mean, can you put it down to the leadership of Root? Is he a strong enough leader?
Possibly.
Is he actually getting the side that he wants?
No, he's clearly not getting the side that he wants for sure, though. I mean, we don't know what happens behind the scenes, whether it is his call or someone else, but it doesn't seem like his call, right? Like if you're a captain, you would want the best team, because at the end of the day, everyone's asking Root questions. Nobody's going to ask the head of the English Cricket Board why this happened.
Well, he's there in India right now. He could be a good question to ask him. Let's get Hatcher on the phone.
He's not going in front of the media. Right?
Yeah. Well, let's get Hatcher on the phone. Someone reach out to Hatcher and let's get him to ask that question. Hatcher Bokal, where are you? We want you to ask that question to the ECB chief. Are you?
I think he's in quarantine right now. Is Harsha in quarantine? I think he is, isn't he? Would he?
He would be.
He'll be there.
All the commentators,
Sid, we got to put out a word to Hasha. We got to get him on the show. We got to say, Hasha, you got to do us a solid. You've got to ask the ECB chief this question for us. Let's talk to the Cricket Buzz guys. But if we're sitting together,
absolutely,
if we're sitting together, guys,
we would love to have him on the show, don't we, guys?
Yeah, Hasha, we want you on the show. We need you.
Yeah.
You're like the Richie Bennett of India.
Yeah.
without the hair and the beige off-white jacket. So if we're sitting around, guys, like, so for the fourth test, India same side, unchanged team.
No
Nikhil,
reason
would you
not
like to go
right?
first?
Yeah, there's no reason not to. Like,
Yeah,
why would you
same
change a winning
stadium, same
combination?
pitch, same team.
Exactly. I think the ball would be different, right? I don't think it's a ping ball test. So yeah, there's that element as well, and which is something which played a huge role in the third test. I think because people didn't expect the pink ball to do so much, and there was this fact that it would skid on a lot more. Like with Akshay Patel, you could see his revolutions were basically like horizontal to the wicket. It was parallel to the batsman, which helped it skid on at times, which was with the straighter ball and the arm ball, which was used very well by him. So the effect of those things and what we have learned and stuff like that, I don't think India would change much. There's no need to change much, and India can't lose this match if they want to play in the World Championship, Test Championship, right? So
well, that's it. Like, do you play for a win or do you play for a draw as well? That's the
if
other
you play
interesting
for a
aspect.
draw, you will probably lose. That's always
It's
my approach. If you play for a win, you might get a draw or you might win. If you play for a draw, you'll most probably lose though.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true.
This team, you know, this
Yeah.
Indian team is not known to play for draws. Draw is the last resort here. It's just about going for the win. And I think as far as the World Test Championship final is concerned, Virat Kohli has very much made it clear that it does not matter, you know, even if they really, you know, qualify or not for the final. Because if the rules change, you know, during the quarantine period or during the lockdown period, is something that they cannot do about it. Because earlier it was the point system, the more the number of points that you have, and you're going to qualify. But now it's not that. It's basically about that, I think, the winning percentage here. So, you know, yeah, of course, it would be great if India can, of course, you know, qualify. But even if I think India are somehow not able to, I think it wouldn't make, you know, much of a difference, because I think during this calendar year, India have really done well. So
I think it applies to a lot of teams.
Absolutely.
Like the truncated calendar year, you know, with New Zealand qualifying and New Zealand on top, yes, it's played a factor into them sort of getting so far and having all those test series at home. And you've got to take into account the number of cancelled test matches that a lot of sides have had around the world. Just quickly, just to wrap up the segment, boys. If we're selecting the England team, who's your best 11?
I think if I may start with this, so I'm going to open with Dom Sibley and Zach Crawley. See, Zach Crawley looked really good in that third test, and I really expect him that to do well, you know, once again. With Dom Sibley on the other hand, you know, let's say a more of a calming figure, I think he could, you know, actually get that big score. Then I would, at number 3, you know, it might be a surprise pick for you, but I would definitely go with Ben Foakes. Because after Joe Root...
Oh, that's a good one. I didn't see that one coming.
Absolutely. See, after Joe Root, if there was any England batsman who looked assured on the crease, it was Ben Foakes. Yes, he didn't get that big score, but that's fine. But he looked very much assured. And then at number 4, you have Joe Root, then Ben Stokes coming in, then Oli Pope, and, you know, probably, let's say, you know, Oli Pope can bat at 5 and Ben Stokes can move down the order at 6. And then at number 7, I wouldn't mind having someone like Johnny Bairstow. See, his natural flair is an attacking game. It's good that, you know, he just comes at 7 and, you know, just go after the bowlers. That's fine. I wouldn't mind him having at number 7. And then, you know, you have your bowlers, in which I would have my 2 spinners, Bess and Leach, and 2 fast bowlers in Anderson and most likely Ole Stone.
Okay, interesting.
And for India, see, there's going to be one definite change with Jasprit Bumrah missing the final test because of, you know, personal reasons. I think, you know, if the wicket turns from day 1, I wouldn't be surprised if India go with 4 spinners and a lone seamer in Ishant Sharma. And when I say 4 spinners, then Kuldeep Yadav definitely, you know, replaces Jasprit Bumrah here. Nikhil, what's your take on that?
Well, I would probably... It could happen, but I'm just like, I'd probably call me like old fashioned, but I want my 2 seamers in a team though. Like regardless of the pitch, I want 2 seamers because you get a new ball, right? And even if it's a spinning pitch or seaming pitch. You want your pacers to be there. So I'll still go with 2 seamers. So we'll just replace Bumrah with someone else. Doesn't even matter who it is, because eventually we know that 8 or 9 of the wickets are going to come from the spinners, right? So you can literally play anyone who just needs to bowl with the new ball and get the ball scruffed up for the spinners. That's the whole objective. With England, I think more than that lineup, they need to change their attitude with the pitch. It's like they are going with the mentality that it's going to spin, we are going to lose. That's the whole mentality in there. If you change that and you just let the pitch be and play the ball on its merit, obviously you keep your preparations in your mind, but you can't let what's happened in the previous 2 test matches affect you going ahead, which happened in the 3rd test, which they clearly had the hangover from the 2nd test, which if it continues in the 4th, there's no chance that England are going to survive, because they batted first in the 3rd test and they still struggled. If they have to bat 4th on a spinning track, I can't see. They might not even like be batting 4th if they follow on or something. So you can, I mean, yeah, for me, more than the starting 11, they need to change their attitude for the next test.
Yeah, you're spot on there, Nick. It's interesting though with the team selections, and you brought this up as well, Sid. The underperformance this series of 1, Jofra Archer, he's clearly underperformed, and then 2, Jasprit Bumrah in his first home series, he hasn't had that impact that we've seen in Australia and overseas. It's his first home series in India, surprisingly. So there's a lot of expectation there as well. And I mean, for a long while, I mean, India hasn't. I mean, when was the pace attack in India this good? I mean, you've got Bumrah, Sharma, you've got Shiraz, you've got a whole battery of decent pace bowlers now, and the pitch just isn't sort of catering to those guys, especially Bumrah, who's world class. What are your thoughts on that, gentlemen?
I think Nikhil, would you like to go first?
Yeah, it's just a matter of playing to your strengths, right? Like if you play your seamers versus their seamers, you're letting England in, so you basically go with the spin. And even if you have to sacrifice your own pace attack for that, they are probably, in terms of pros and cons, the spinning track wins, and they are like, okay, we'll use the seamers when we go to England and beat them later in the year. So that's probably the approach. That's all.
And I think, for me, it's in India, I think it's primarily about, how the spinners fare. Of course, seamers do tend to do well, but, and as for the, as has been the case with Ishant Sharma, he has played, 100 tests now, a massive achievement. But yeah, I think I'm not really worried about Jasprit Bumrah's form. And personally, I feel Bumrah is a very impact bowler. He plays across formats, and that is where you need to preserve him. And with that being said, I really want Bumrah to be preserved for just overseas tests, because look at the way, look at the impact that he has had in England, Australia, West Indies, even was pretty decent in New Zealand. So yeah, I'm not that worried about it, but yeah, with the bench strength growing, with Siraj coming in, Kartik Tyagi coming in, you have Shardul Thakur also, Natarajan is also coming in. Yeah, the future looks bright.
It does indeed. Guys, let's wrap up the test match talk there.
Okay, so guys, thank you for your points here, and see you on the other side with the India, see you on the other side with the Australian New Zealand T20s.
Yeah,
no final, but yeah, we'll discuss it. Yeah.